have the evidence. We will kick off officially in a little bit, but it is our April 14th spring AGATE meeting, and the minutes have been posted in the chat. And I forwarded you Debbie Daly's treasurer report. She'll be a little late. I think she said she had a crown break off, and so she had like an emergency dentist meeting this morning.
Oh, Jake beat me to it. He put his name in there.
Did he spell it right?
I think he got it right.
Is your middle name Frealdenhoven, Jake?
Oh, well, close enough.
Did anybody get to do trivia with Jake? I don't remember. It's all a big blur that whole day, but anybody on the board get to do it besides me?
Yeah, I saw how you worked that. I was sitting over in room 6 going, look at Dustin. He's in the trivia one. Of course he is.
Hey, you got to take a break sometime, right? In the midst of the chaos.
I've got 5 after, so I guess we could slowly get started. If y'all will continue to read through the notes, you can just casually listen. I want to call the meeting officially to order. It's been since since January the 7th, a long time, 4 months since we last saw each other, and a lot has happened. We've had our virtual conference, lots of webinars. Many of us have gotten our vaccinations, if not all of us. I mean, it's gone through some major events and life changes. We're in the near the end, thank goodness, of the legislative session. So lots of things have happened, to say the least. But I've been very proud of what AGATE has been able to do the last 4 months, especially since our meeting. I know Monica Springfield and Jennifer Park have done an amazing job. We've gotten the evaluations for our virtual conference, and I'm looking forward to hearing Jennifer and Monica's report to the board on that. So with that being said, then let's move over to on the next agenda item, approval of the January 7th meeting minutes.
I approve.
A motion by Christine Dietz to approve. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Monica Meadows. Any discussion? Sometimes people have to wait to unmute. I want to give due diligence, but.
Well, it's like I approve with the changes that we made regarding Jake's last name.
All right, the amended minutes.
As amended.
Oh, goodness. And Dustin, I dropped the link to today's minutes in the chat. If everyone will go put your name there, maybe that won't happen next time. If you're here today, please drop your name in there as an attendee. I appreciate it. And then if you see anything I missed today, jump in there and correct me, please.
What is one advantage of doing virtual meetings is we can record. So it's like we have a digital file of the minutes too to always go back on. The motion on the floor to approve the January 7th meeting minutes. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. So we approve the minutes. See, good job, Ramona.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Would y'all like to skip the treasurer report until Debbie can come? Or would y'all like to briefly review it? Because I know it's financials. I'm going to share it on my screen so we can at least look at it together. She sent an email to, I want to say, the executive committee about what we've made to date. Oh, that's really small. Can y'all see that? Do I need to make it bigger? Is that visible for y'all?
A little bit. I have to get right up on it.
Okay. Let's see. All right, so there we go. Long story short, I shared it with y'all. Look in your emails if you'd like to see it and pull it up individually. We are under budget, which is really good. I know from what Debbie said we did, I'm gonna scroll down to the bottom. It's easier. I'm not a treasurer, so when it comes to looking at the budget, it's not my specialty. But I believe from what Debbie said, I'm sorry, yeah, from what Debbie said, we have brought in $70,000 to date, which is under what we've traditionally brought in, but our expenses have been significantly lower as well. So I believe she said we had like a $2,000 or a $20,000 like increase, which is amazing to have a positive of $20,000. But again, I don't see that as neatly, clearly as she said. Let me see if I can find it better. Oh, and I got your message, Crystal. Do you want to do your update while we wait on Debbie, maybe?
I can.
That would be better.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to you then, since we have you near the bottom, but I know you said you need to leave, and we would like to hear from you. So
Thank you. All right. Yeah, I've got 2 other meetings scheduled on top of this meeting today. So I'll be in and out. So I think there'll be a window in between those meetings when you'll see me pop back in, but then I'll have to leave again. So good morning, everybody. Let me pull up our updates document. It's the same one that we've been using for the year. Or Amanda, if you already have it open, do you? Yes. Okay. So there is our updates document. We have added a few things since we last met with this group. Looks like anything in blue or purple is going to be updates since this last board meeting. So one of the things there at the very beginning is that digital learning piece and the guidebook for digital learning. There are pages in that about GT. I think last time we met, well, I know last time we met, we'd already contributed those pages and I knew that was coming, but it wasn't officially released yet. So since then it has been released. There are pages related to guidance around learning, gifted and advanced learners. Whenever we're thinking about digital learning and thinking about the digital learning plans for next year. Later in the report, there's a little more information about digital learning plans, but I am going to go ahead and hit it now because that's one of the key things that I do want to be able to share some information about with the group. So in how those digital learning plans are working, districts have the option to submit one, and it's not a requirement, but they have the option to submit. They're due May 1st. And it's if they plan to use digital learning moving forward. And so in how that review process has worked, I've been part of that review team and I have read in full every digital learning plan that's been submitted so far and been able to give feedback on the GT piece as well as other pieces, and being able to see the full plan I think has been helpful with being able to, think about how GT fits in this broader overall plan that they're putting together. So some things that I would say as far as when you're thinking about these, hopefully you guys are going to be included in the teams for your districts that are working on writing these plans. But some big things there that as we've reviewed them, it's not always been clear that districts realize that GT standards have to be met for those digital programs that they're going to be providing. And so in how the responses to how they're going to provide services written or in that response, it needs to be clear that they are going to meet those standards. So whether that's in narrative describing all of the different pieces or if it is including a statement that verifies that the requirements from GT program approval standards are going to be met for on-site and virtual learners. So making sure that that's clear, and that piece about meeting requirements applies to GT. But if you're on these teams, it also would be helpful to know that that information also applies for all the other special programs. So that's true for GT. It's also true for services for English learners, for your dyslexia services, for services for special education. So verifying that you're going to meet any applicable laws or rules is an important piece in those plans overall for all those different student support services that are provided in our schools. And so that's something that's part of those. And so I've been reviewing those. I've worked with some districts that have had questions on it. Worked with some co-ops that have had questions about how to support districts. In how that works, the feedback that DESE gives is going to co-ops, and co-ops are supporting districts in making revisions to their plans. So that's how this process has been explained to me and how it's working. And that's still how it's working as far as I know. No one's told me different. After those revisions go back, I'm not sure what the process is after that. So I don't know if those plans will then route through our group to review again before they go to state board, or if they will be submitted and then just go before state board. I'm not sure what the process is for any follow-up submissions. So we've not gotten to that point yet. I'm sure I'll learn soon, but right now I don't know the details on that. So I know that's kind of a big thing right now. Does anybody have any questions about that or how those are working? No. How many of you are involved in that? I know some of your district folks, some of you aren't. How many of you guys are involved? Some, kind of, yes, good. Jennifer. Okay, yeah, okay, good. So I'm glad you guys are involved. In many of them, I've seen lots of good things, and in some of them, I've seen just some things that have scratched the surface, and that it's appeared like there are big holes in what their plan is. So there's been a big variance, but we are trying to support districts and make sure that they are thinking through those plans. If they were submitted early on, they probably got very detailed feedback from me. Recently, we've been given a little bit different guidance about just sticking to those 3 aspects that are part of these plans of interaction, delivery, and platforms, tying our comments back to those 3 things, and just doing a generic response about meeting the requirements from our standards. And so that, again, that applies to GT programs as well as the other student support programs that are included in those plans. All right, next up is related to our program apps and questions that we were asking. So common things that we were asking were around what program options were being used for virtual learning. In the way those apps were written, we asked districts to tell us if they were using different program options for virtual learners than they were using for on-site. And so we've gotten lots of narrative responses about what's happening. And sometimes that does actually boil down to it being a different program options. But in many times what we're reading, it's actually the same program option. It's just a different delivery method. So it's happening over Google or a Zoom instead of in a classroom, but it's still the same program option. So that was one thing we had a little bit of confusion around, and that's on us. We didn't write the question as clearly as we could have now that we've read the responses and gone back and looked at our question again. So we'll work on writing that more clearly. Next year, I do anticipate that still will be a question. So we will still be asking about that in the GT program approval application so that it'll be reflected there if there are different program options being used for your virtual learners versus your on-site learners. When we're thinking about that and when you're thinking about your plans, one big question that we've been asking is related to equity and thinking about equitable services for all your students, regardless of their learning environment. So think about that as you're making those plans and as you're preparing to do that app next year. The other big thing was around completion of identification. For many of our districts in October, when they submitted these reports, they had not completed identification processes yet. And so that was still something that was in the works. So for many, we have had to follow up and check in on that and if that's been completed and where they are in that process. Next up in the list is our summer PD session. So our office is working on developing a session around equity and gifted programs. We plan to offer that session about 6 times, I think, this summer, and it'll be listed in ESC Works. We've asked our co-op specialists to weigh in on if there are certain dates that they would like us to tag their co-ops to encourage their coordinators to attend together on a certain date. And so we are working on putting all of that data together from our specialists. And then once we have that, the sessions will post in ESC Works with the notations to encourage coordinators or teachers from certain co-ops to attend on certain days. But it'll be like we did last year in that all of them will be open to anyone that wants to attend on any of those days. So if the day for your co-op doesn't work for you, then you can attend on a different day.
And those are free, Crystal?
Those are free. They're free, and they will be virtual. So they'll be done via Zoom, and they'll be free, and they'll be posted in ESC Works under the ADE sessions. We learned last year that those are not that easy to find if you've not looked for ADE sessions in that system before. And so we will be giving you direct hyperlinks to get you to those sessions instead of just the session information. So we'll work on trying to do better about making that easy to find for our folks.
Is that something that we can send out to our too?
Yes, absolutely. So they are open to anyone. So it doesn't have to be a GT coordinator, GT teacher, GT facilitator. It could be anyone that's interested in coming and talking about equity and gifted programs. So yeah, they're open to anyone. Okay, next up, related to Governor's School, the request for proposals for site selection was sent out in January, and we received 3 proposals. And so right now we are in the process of that committee getting appointed and asked to be part of that work of selecting the site for Governor's School for the next 3 years. So this summer it's at Tech, but then this process will determine the location for the next 3 summers. Student selections already happened. Students have been notified, and schools have been notified of those decisions. Many of you helped with that. Thank you to all of you who did. It takes a large group to be able to review all of those and make those decisions. So thank you to the folks that helped. With this summer, they are looking at doing some flexible options for attending and participating in Governor's School. The plan right now is to have an on-site Governor's School at Tech. And they also are looking at ways that they could also give a virtual option for students who maybe are not as comfortable attending on campus. So that's something that Tech is looking at. Jeff and Robin are working on those plans. I don't think that there's anything formal or finalized that's out there at this point, but that's sort of what the plans are right now. Next on the list is Aegis program, so academic enrichment for gifted and talented in summer, and you have a hyperlink there to the programs that the committee has selected for funding. And so you will see, I believe, 8 programs. Some of them are ones that have occurred before, so they're programs that have happened and have been under our Aegis umbrella in the past. Others are new programs. We had some really quality applicants. That committee, I know I shared at I think with this group at the last meeting that committee that reviewed these applications was very attentive to details in the applications and to the integrity of Aegis programs and wanting to make sure that that was maintained. So for many of these, we did ask some follow-up questions and had responses come back from those programs and asked for additional information or for them to respond to some things from that committee. And so these 8 will be funded. It does not meet the full $150,000 that we had set aside. And so you guys as a board are aware of that. I know advocating for Aegis and for funding for Aegis is something that is constantly on your radar and our radar. And so I think it's important that you know that in the applications that we received, we are not going to fully expend all of the money that is set aside for those programs. We had 2 additional applicants that are not on the but for those 2, one of them, whenever some questions were asked about the program, they decided to withdraw their application instead of responding and resubmitting. So they withdrew their application, and the other one responded to some questions and then had been selected for funding. But because of some COVID related issues and some hiccups that they kept facing with trying to plan it all out, they decided to pull their application as well. So we would have been closer to that 150 had those 2 programs taken place this summer. So, all right, next on the list for 2021 AP exam. So if you're AP coordinator, you're very familiar with this already, but College Board has changed up some of the ways that they're doing exam administration for this year. I'm not going to go into deep detail on that. The information's there at the link. So if you're an AP coordinator, if you're interested in seeing how College Board is setting that up, then check into that. They are offering paper and pencil exams like they've traditionally offered, and they are also offering some digital exams this year. So that's something that has kind of been a carryover of COVID, is that they have figured out how to do some digital exams as an option in some of the administrations for some of the courses. So not for everything. It's kind of dependent on the course and dependent on the administration what option is available. Next up are some student supports. So with those exams coming up in about a month, a little less than a month, those exams will start happening. And there are some supports on College Board for AP exam prep. And then there's also some free AP tutoring available at schoolhouse.world that we've hyperlinked in there. That's a new resource that we weren't aware of. The division is working on a partnership with schoolhouse.world. It's SalCon is involved in Khan Academy. And then I believe CODA is the other organization that is part of this. So there will be some information pushed out from DESE about that partnership and about other learning resources that are available there. So that's coming, and that's not in our house to make that announcement. So when that's available, I'll share it out, the full information about all of it. But I am aware of that resource and of the AP exam prep stuff that's available there. It focuses on science and math and computer science courses on that particular site. But it's there. There are some resources available for kids, and now is when our teachers and kids need to know about it. So I'm linking it. It's there. It's out there and free for the public to be able to get on and see. And next up is desegregation monitoring. Our office supports those Garland County deseg monitoring visits every year, or have for the last several years. And so Amanda and Connie helped with conducting those Zoom visits with those schools, those GT coordinators, and in some cases, additional administrators from the district were also on for those visits. And so trying to support them with thinking about equity and how their gifted programs are operating. Next up is the summit, which is coming up. Plans right now are for summit to take place live in Hot Springs at the Convention Center with a limited number of attendees, and also virtually. So options for attendance, you'll have options to attend either way. I've hyperlinked there. This year, I think there is a fee for registering. It's like $50, so it's not a lot, but that I think is new. I think it had been free in the past, but I believe it's $50 this year. Commissioner's memo hasn't pushed out. I think that's coming out next week based on an email I got earlier this week. So I think it will push out next week with the schedule. We are going to have April Wells, who's a member of the NAGC board and a GT coordinator in a school district in Illinois, talk about achieving equity and gifted programming. She has done a lot of work in her district, implemented a lot of practices, and has data to show that it has helped with increasing equitable services for all students that are in her district. And so she is going to be sharing about that. Her session is going to be a virtual session, so it will be one that is zoomed out. And so that one will be there. And I can't say yet for sure because the schedules won't be totally finalized until it pushes out in the commissioner's memo. So whenever that's there, though, I will push that out and share so that you guys can share it with coordinators and share with anyone else. There are lots of sessions around equity. So ours was in there early on, and we were talking with April about presenting early on related to equity and gifted. And now that I've seen the full schedule, there are lots of sessions focusing on equity for different programs, different types of services, different contents. And so lots of things there that I think will likely have carryover that we could apply to how we think about equity with gifted programs as well. So next up on the list with educator effectiveness, we have worked with them on updating the GT competencies documents that are the things that educators should know, understand, be able to do as they complete educator prep programs. And we've worked with them on updating the one for GT administrators as well as the one for GT teachers. So those two different licensure areas for GT. So we've worked with them on that. The GT teachers one, we just sent back our feedback on the final draft to Rose yesterday. So that one should be updated and get posted to the website pretty soon. So we pulled in different people to help work with that, folks that are involved in the teacher prep programs, as well as I think on both of them, they had someone that was a practitioner as well that's out there in the field. So we've been helping with that process. Digital learning plans I've already talked about. I went ahead and got that right at the beginning. Just wanted to make sure everybody was still with me when we talked through that. So I won't go into that again. So those are the big things. Any questions for me about any of that? One of the things that's not on there yet is additional approvals for AP or pre-AP trainings that could meet that training requirement. That committee is scheduled to meet tomorrow and make those decisions. And so after that, that information will be pushed out and we'll update this document and include the hyperlink to the commissioner's memo that'll list any trainings that may be approved for that. In a sort of related note, we worked with Anthony Owen to get the APSI for computer science on his list of trainings that teachers can get some bonus money basically for them for attending the PD. So that is something that was good. Christine helped make me aware of that was going on, and the other APSI directors. And so they reached out to Anthony and I reached out to Anthony, and he was happy to help support that and support the APSIs and those trainings for those teachers. So that's a win for everybody.
I had a question. Crystal, you said there were 3 applicants for governor's school, and I know you probably can't announce anything about them yet, but I'm curious, do you know whether any one of those 3 have set up a plan for a program to go back to 6 weeks as opposed to staying with 4 weeks?
So I can tell you who the 3 are. I have permission to share that. I do not have permission to share additional information about the plans. So the 3 that submitted proposals are Hendrix, Tech, and Arkansas State. So those are our 3 universities that submitted proposals to host. And so I knew that would be a question that as I share this, that would be asked. And so I asked my leadership about what I could share at this point. And so those 3 institution names, I can share. Other details about what's in their applications at this point, I can't.
Okay, I'm just curious about whether, what's the sense of urgency at trying to get appropriation in the next session because of the potential for there. And obviously, if we're only going to get 8 to 10 applications a year, we're okay with 150 and we don't need to be that concerned. And we don't have a rationale to go try to get more money at that stage of the game. So, but, if there is a school that's going to go back to then the 250 that's sitting there kind of as a kind of a reserve may or may not be available. That's the only reason I was really curious about that. So as soon as you do know and can report, let me know so we kind of get a sense of whether or not we need to push forward. And we need to, I think about, is there a way to, and I know coming out of COVID, it's not probably pertinent, but going forward, how can we begin to recruit more people to look into Aegis? Because if we, we hope that after COVID, it'll start growing again. But that's my only question about that. But thanks anyway. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Hey, Crystal, what was the 3rd site? I'm sorry, I'm trying to capture it in the minutes.
Oh, it's Hendrix, Arkansas Tech, and Arkansas State.
Okay, thank you.
Crystal, I had a question from somebody asking if one of the Aegis programs have already been approved and there's money left over, could they request additional funding for any additional like spots or anything like that? Or is that finalized?
The Aegis like the director of that program.
Could any of the programs ask or request for any extra money or leftover money?
If they're thinking that might be a need, I need to know as soon as possible, because once those process in our online grant management system, they're locked up. So right now, I know I have talked with 2 of those programs have reached out since they submitted their budgets and have some COVID related things going on, and talked with me about options. And for both of them, I did give them the option to let me know if there are changes that they need to make to that budget that they've submitted. So both very valid issues that were going on with how their programs were going to be run, and that were things that they had checked on before submitted. And then some of the organizations that they're partnering with changed their stance on a few things. And so they needed to make some changes because of that.
Okay.
So yeah, if there's a director that is aware that they are going to potentially need some additional funds, then right now is when I need to hear from them.
Okay. And I'll get with Monica to make sure we share out the information to our membership about the Aegis programs too, just in.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, because they're programs. So in those cases, and in this one as well, so these are selected and approved by committee. So their programming didn't change. It just was expenses needed to be adjusted a bit because of some minor details in the management of the program because of COVID. So.
Okay. Any other questions for Crystal? All right, thank you, Crystal. I'm going to move in the agenda to Sandra Johnson's legislative committee report. We had a request to have that, and I know she's got a meeting with AAEA on their board to review legislation this morning. So Sandra, I'm going to let you unmute and give us kind of an update real quick.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. That meeting starts at 9, so I'm going to be a little late to it. So this is going to be a quick review, and Davis can kind of pick up the slack at the end of this, if you don't mind, Davis. Davis does a great job sending out monthly reports to our committee, and they eventually trickle down to the board in some form or fashion, whether it's in the newsletter or however that comes out. But this has been a long, contentious session. It's been extremely one-sided, if you want to consider it that way. I serve on the, I've been blessed to be able to do this too, but I serve on the AAEA curriculum committee. There's 3 of those committees. And so really the bills that I've looked at have been mostly curriculum-based bills. And that's where we felt like Gifted would see anything that came across that would deal with programming or curriculum for Gifted would be in that pot with, AP and things like that would come through that. So Aaron Randolph also sits on that because he is on the board as president of AGATE. So he and I have kind of been attending those meetings. So I just want to remind you, and I hope that, and I'm sure that you are all members of AGATE. If you're on the AGATE board, you surely are a member of AGATE. But the bill tracker that AAEA puts out, it is a great reference point for you. When you're wondering about a bill, what happened to it, not only can you go there and read the bill and see all that, it gives you the history of what's happened to that bill and why AAEA took the stance that they took on that bill. So the curriculum bills that have come through, I just want to tell you, there are scads of them. I mean, scads and scads of them. And for the most part, AAEA opposes curriculum bills. And the reason behind that is because AAEA on the grand scale feels like it's not the legislative job, it's not the legislative position to manage curriculum. That is a department decision, that is a standards decision, and that's a local decision. And so, like, for example, this is just a tiny example, but Senate Bill 160 was about Holocaust education, about teaching about the Holocaust. And so that bill came through and AAEA opposed that bill. Now, AAEA is not opposed to teaching about the Holocaust, but AAEA wondered how exactly would that look like in kindergarten? How are you going to teach about the Holocaust in kindergarten? And who's going to determine that? And so there were a lot of unanswered questions about that bill, and they still feel like that it's best to leave curriculum decisions to the department, to DESE, and to local districts. Of course, that bill passed and it's been signed by the governor, and so we we had a lot of bills like that we opposed, and you might think, well, it's great to teach about the history of the Holocaust, and it is. And so in case you wonder sometimes why AEA took a stance, read that bill tracker, and generally it will give you a reason why AEA did support or oppose a particular bill. There are a couple bills that I just kind of want to share with you that we took a little extra note on, and one was the voucher bills that have been coming through. Senate bill, I think the first one was Senate Bill 1371 maybe, and it got a lot of traction and had a lot of conversation, but it ended up being struck down. And now there's a couple more voucher bills that are in the pot stirring right now. One is Senate Bill 630, and I think that it's set for the Senate Education Committee today at 2. And another one is Senate Bill 680, and it is set for the Senate Committee this morning at 9:30. The Senate Committee on Revenue and Taxation this morning. And so generally, AAEA and public education is opposed to diverting public tax dollars, to private schools without the same oversight and accountability and transparency that's required with public schools. And Davis and I were talking yesterday, and Davis and I talk a lot, by the way, through session. And, basically right now, these vouchers provide funding for public school students to attend private schools, but private schools still can screen who they take. And so it's still an equitable issue for us. A private school can still screen what kind of students they take. So we're opposed to all voucher bills at this point because they take public school tax dollars. And so just so you understand a little bit about the rationale of that. And the other little one that came through that kind of touched on gifted was an early kindergarten bill that was about if your birthday fell within 30 days, maybe the principal could decide whether you could go ahead and go to kindergarten or not. Well, that was opposed strongly by AAEA, and the whole committee felt that way because there was no clarity. It shouldn't be a principal that has to decide that. And if we're going to do something on early entrance into kindergarten, it should be a bigger look. It should be an acceleration type policy. And so there has been some small conversation happening about that at the AEA level, and I'll share more about that later if something develops. But anyway, so that we were opposed to that because of the way that fell out. It wasn't very really gifted friendly, and it was very unclarified. So and I just want to tell you that there have been a lot of contentious bills filed that I know a lot of you have had concerns about. And I just want to tell you that Dustin and Davis and I have done a lot of talking through this, and generally in the best interest of our organization, we are only going to take an organizational stance when it directly impacts gifted programming and curriculum and the services that we provide. There are a lot of crazy bills out there, and I mean some that hurt your heart. And we're not asking you not to take a personal stance on those. You are always welcome and encouraged to contact your legislator and share with them your feelings about that. But for the most part, anything that takes on any type of religious overtone or anything like that, we're not going to divide our group I mean, you would be surprised at how divisive so many of these bills are, and we're just going to try to stay away from a lot of that. You are more than welcome to deal with that personally, but there have been a lot of bills that have come through that I have scratched my head and thought this is the craziest bill I've ever heard. And I had contacted my person and said, this is crazy, you better not support this. and he gets it from me. And so I want you to know, but if you ever have any concerns or questions about a bill, you are always welcome to contact Davis. You're welcome to contact me as the legislative chair, or Dustin, and we can talk about some of this. I'm going to tell you, this has been a hard year emotionally. It has been a hard year to read these bills, to watch the sessions as they discuss this stuff, and it hasn't been easy. But I think that Davis, I just want to say kudos to you. He has probably worked harder this year than I've ever seen him work. He's had to be on spot, and we've been on the phone 24/7 sometimes, but he's done a good job. So if you have any specific questions, you're welcome to ask now, or you can contact me later. Dustin, Davis, Dustin, either one, do you have anything you want to add?
The only thing I was going to add was that the session's not ending. They're just taking a recess. I want to say like April 27th or something like that, because they're waiting for the redistricting information to come out for the census, which won't probably come out till late August, early September. And then they're going to re-adjourn in the fall. So even though the session may be winding down, I talked to Denise Gardner, and she said they're technically not supposed to reintroduce new legislation other than redistricting next fall. There's nothing that necessarily says they couldn't, because they're just recessing a long term until then. And that will or impact our board, because again, we updated our constitution to reflect our congressional districts to match our agate districts. So I do want us, especially our district directors, to make sure we're following that. We can give any input in that process should we see something major, which I don't see happening, but it's still something I want us to be aware of.
Dustin, they had talked about maybe the 30th was the deadline, but 21st maybe, and now I think they pushed it back out to the 30th. As of yesterday, that's what I'd heard, but I don't know. So April 30th is when they're supposed to recess. Yeah, they're not closing it, and then they'll start back in maybe 1st of September.
Yeah, let me add one thing if I can. Oh, go ahead, Dustin.
I was going to say, because I know Sandra needs to go. Are there any questions specifically for Sandra as chair, or any bills that y'all would like us to bring before to the committee? Okay.
I will say that we'll have a legislative committee meeting at the end of the session. We'll kind of summarize that. So if you're on the committee, we'll be shooting for May. Maybe we're kind of talking about maybe May the 10th, if that's a Monday. I'll send out some information.
And Sandra,
ahead, David. Yes.
We're talking about doing a wrap up session, kind of like we did at the beginning, but do one at the end for all of our members as a joining. We'll talk about that, I guess, in the May meeting too.
Yeah, we had talked about doing just like an evening session where we can kind of just hit the highlights of that.
Yeah, all I would add to that really good comprehensive report is that let me know if I need to change the way I'm reporting, because what's going to weekly to the committee also goes to the board members. I need to be sure I've got all of the board members on that mailing list. So if you've not been getting a weekly report, usually Monday of the week following or over the weekend, I try to wrap that up and get it out to you. Let me know if you're not getting it. If you want to get it, you may not want it. But I would encourage you to, I know you're busy, and I certainly, when I send that out at the end of the week, I don't expect you to immediately drop whatever you're doing and start reading. But I do think we're trying to hit a happy medium and just give you minimal information, because I assume many of you, and hope all of you, are members of AGATE, so that you get Mike's, he gives almost daily updates. He's really on top of that. And so you can get quite a bit of information if you're belonging to AAEA for sure. So let me know if the format's okay. Certainly don't hesitate to call if you've got questions about bills. There have been some good bills passed too. There's a dual language immersion program that was been approved and is signed into law already that really is a really neat kind of bill that gives schools a much more effective way and kind of advocates a more effective way to teach language. And there's some good bills that the rating system was suspended this year. It was HB 1151. Now it's Act 89, and that removed the rating system this year because of the fact that we didn't have testing last year and there was no way to really compute those scores accurately. And that was Representative Tollett, who is, he's the superintendent at Barton. So we've got people on filing bills who come from education now. Stu Smith's on the House Education Committee, and he's got background. And of course, Evans, the co-chair of that committee. So we're building some relationships with new legislators. And like Sandra said, we're real slow to take organizational action because we don't know when in the future we're going to need those votes on those House and Senate education committees. And if we jump into a controversial situation in a bill and identify ourselves as an organization, when we're not really sure where our whole organization is on an issue because of the emotional nature of it, it could get us in a situation with legislators that we don't really need to put ourselves at risk in a future situation where we need their support. So we're just trying to just be diplomatic and ask lots of questions. I do call legislators and ask questions about bills because that way I don't reveal whether we're for or against the bill, but ask for some rationale so we have better understanding of what their motivation for submitting a certain bill is. So we do ask questions and we are building those relationships in that way. And I want y'all to be aware of that, but just keep me posted if you need more information or if what I'm sending is not appropriate in your mind, just let me know that so I can make adjustments and we can find the best way to report to y'all without overwhelming you with more information than you absolutely have time to digest.
Thank you,
Y'all have
Dave.
any?
Thank you. It's
Yes,
been great.
ma'am.
What you're sending is great. And that's really wise advice to, we just got to think of the big picture.
Yes,
Great.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. We've always, this is nothing new this session. There have been contentious legislation for the last 20 years from different times. It's probably more difficult this year than it's ever been. It's more emotional. There's a lot of emotion in this session, and a lot of people have a lot of values invested in this session. So it's been real interesting to see how the legislative committees deal with each other, how they respond. And for the most part, there's been a lot of civility at times when I was afraid and concerned that we would abandon that. And so it's been interesting, but watching it all, I try to watch in real time and succeed in doing that almost all the time. And it by the end of a 2.5-hour Senate or House Education Committee meeting, a couple of times I've been emotionally exhausted. And so I would encourage you, the links that I send you, if you have time to go watch testimony, it's very, I would encourage you to, I think I put that in the last report. I would encourage you to go watch testimony on bills that are controversial to get firsthand input as to what the legislators are using as a rationale for their defenses of their bills, rather than trusting social media, because once it hits social media, it gets bent and twisted and people use it for their own purposes. But when you watch the testimony firsthand, then you can kind of tell whether someone's being disingenuous or whether they're really speaking their mind about something that they really have a value about. So I know you don't have time, but if you do squeeze some time and get a chance to watch testimony, I encourage you to do so. And don't hesitate to call me anytime. I always have time to respond, and I'll do research for you. If you need me to follow up on a bill, there's 2,500 bills floating around out there, but we have great resources through AAEA Bill Tracker, and we can find information on a bill at any time and get that information to you if you need it.
Thanks, Davis.
Sure.
I know having Davis read those the bills and giving us dates is nice, and having Sandra and Aaron on the AAEA committees reviewing the legislation with other superintendents and curriculum leaders has been very helpful, and making sure that Gifted has a seat at the table. So we appreciate that. There's been a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on this session that I want to make sure we thank Davis and Sandra for their work. I know Sandra's already left, but Davis, thanks for doing that. All right. Debbie's still not here. I'm being mindful of quorum. We're still at quorum, so we're good on voting and so forth. But I'll go ahead and just give an update on Debbie's report, because I saw she sent it to me and Jennifer. Basically, we have $70,000 in income from the conference, from membership dues, from things like that. We've to date have had about $47,000 in expenses, looking at the report she sent out. And that gives us total then, so to date, year to date, at $22,000, almost $23,000 in profit. One thing that I think would be a good tie-in to get into the AGATE 2021 conference report with Jennifer is that she said last year the conference made $24,000 in profit, compared to this year we made $47,000 in profit, which I think is phenomenal for our organization. And that's largely due to Jennifer's lead as conference chair and Monica's work as co-chair for that. So, all right, I'm going to turn it over then to Jennifer and Monica. If y'all want to give us a AGATE 2021 conference report, kind of evaluations, expenses, and anything else.
Okay, I just put in the chat the link, and I just kind of did a little update. Monica wrote up, did the questionnaire, and so I just kind of went through it. But yes, at the bottom you can see, I don't know, let me see. Oh, hang on, let me pick snooze because it's trying to restart. Okay, I can share, or you can go to it. I'll share my screen, I guess. We had 67 people respond to the survey, to the evaluation. I did notice the breakdown. Most attended the breakouts, also the keynotes. Over 58% did watch the recordings, so that's pretty good. We ended up going back. It was going to be just open for a 2-week period. And after we were kind of getting some feedback, we ended up, they're open until the end of the school year is what we're going to do, except for the keynotes, which were, in the contract that we could only have them for 2 weeks. Everybody seemed to like all the whole day of keynotes, which when you look at our expenses, I mean, that was really the main expense, was having so many keynote speakers. So, I mean, that's not necessarily going to be feasible to do. I mean, even though everybody loved a whole day of breakout, when we're on site, that's probably not going to be possible. So someone mentioned how great the awards session was. So that was great. And Patricia Hesse was noted. Everybody just raved about the keynotes. So that was a good thing to add. One of the questions was about if we offered another virtual conference, would you attend? And so we had 69% said they would, 3% wouldn't, and 28% unsure. So I kind of think that was just kind of, if we added one or if we had it next year. Strengths, I think everybody tended to like. We only had one comment about the student engagement day, but that was kind of, we weren't putting it with conference because it was free, but we did get we did get some feedback about it being a hit. And y'all can read this yourself, but we did get some great comments. I mean, not to say we're better than NAGC, but we did get some good comments that said, we did a good job. And so we had a lot to offer. And so that was good. And some suggestions for next year were, of course, to try to do a hybrid, kind of doing it virtually, because everybody liked the idea of having the sessions later to be able to come back to. And so I think that would be something good, maybe if that could be possible, you know, because I think you always have questions there and then you kind of forget things and you like to go back and look at it. Let's see, parent session that evening was great. We had a huge a large turnout, and I think it was helpful that it was online. So definitely something that we want to think about continuing on and offering it online. Student day, just some issues. But again, this was the first year and I thought it went really well. I did the yes room and I enjoyed it. The kids enjoyed it. We had a lot of people popping in and even some teachers coming in to learn more about yes. So, and I kind of answered some questions for them about that, but I thought that went well too. So overall, I thought it went great. And just the income was like Dustin said, over 59,000. Our expenses were a little 5 cents over 12,000. And our profit was 47,169. So I thought it turned out really well, and people are still, you know, trying to still have access to the recordings and everything. So I definitely think it was a success. Any questions?
Thanks, Jennifer. I was reading through it, and as always, I'm sure we see this every conference and the evals. We have one person say, "We love this," and then the next one will be like, "Oh, we don't like that." I'm like, "Well, we can't please everybody, right?"
Yeah. Well, there was only one comment about it being expensive, which I was like, "Well, that's good." I mean, but when you think about, and I'm sure that they were thinking, "Well, we don't have food and all this, and it's expensive for an online conference." But yeah, I mean, when you look at the whole day of keynotes, if you didn't have that, you might think, you know, it was expensive. But with bringing in those names, you know, so yeah.
And we did get a lot of requests for comments for next year's keynote, and we're like, "Who would y'all recommend?" And as Jennifer pointed out, a lot of them, 15 it looked like in the document, said bring back Gary Brooks, which would be fine, but I'm not a big fan of bringing the same speaker year to year. And his online versus on-site is astronomically more expensive. And I don't think we're in a position as a board to bring in somebody for 20 grand to do a speech. So with y'all's permission, I know Monica and Jennifer will do their fiduciary role for next year, but we're not disregarding some of the comments. We're just being mindful that it's not as practical doing on-site versus online.
Monica, did you have anything to add? I'm sorry. I see she's there.
She's driving, so she may.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Wait, I think.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, the only other thing I'll add is Dr. Delisle, and he really was over the top about our parent participation. He said he's done several parent workshops and has seen like a max of maybe 10 to 20 parents show up. So we had over 100 parents in our sessions. And so I thought that was really positive. And I know Jennifer touched on that, but to hear one of our keynotes say that and how successful that was, and that we should, you know, keep doing that because he thought that was just great. So I don't know. I just thought that was a really nice comment to hear from someone that presents to parents quite often in evenings.
Yeah, Davis pointed out, and I think we're going to look at this as a conference committee for next year, that we do want to potentially offer evening or weekend options for parents or students to participate, because that seems to be, if we had over 100 virtually on a Thursday or a Wednesday night, that was a big plus for us. And it definitely made an impact with Dr. Delisle. And we had people ask for Dr. Delisle to come back, but it sounded like, and I think I'm not letting the cat out of the bag, he's retiring from doing that. So we may have been one of the last few to experience his keynotes. All right. I was thoroughly impressed with what Monica and Jennifer did, and I have heard rave reviews. And so as a board, I want to make sure we all just congratulate you too, because not only profit wise was it great, but content wise, it was stellar. And I know I lost sleep leading up to it, worrying that we're going to have technology issues and so forth, and knock on wood, everything worked well. All right. So that means we do need to have a plan for 2022. And thankfully our conference chairs are going to do that again as well. But let's jump into the committee reports. Karen, I'm going to turn it over to you. You're first on the docket for membership committee. You want to give us an update?
Okay. And first I'll say we did do Gifted Awareness Week while we were doing AGATE, and did receive some excellent pictures and things that different schools participated in, dressing like their favorite gifted character. Dustin and I both received some really nice videos that we've gotten permission from some of them that maybe we can put those on the website or have them playing somewhere. And we had a group of students that did compete in the poster contests and things, and we did give the 2 winners a free student membership. And right now, as of I checked this morning, we have 429 members, and I've only had 13 expire. We're still getting memberships. We had 3 new ones this last month. So that's where we are at right now at 429. And I'm already starting to plan for fall for our membership drive. Dustin had sent me something from another state that they had used, and it was they were using hashtag YGT, and we kind of like that. And so I'm doing a little exploring with the idea and be putting it together, sharing it with you guys at our next meeting, but possibly doing a screen print transfer of like hashtag YGT, that with a paid membership during membership drive that could be sent out, and then looking at the cost of having a large one made that would go across the front of a t-shirt. That way they could put them on whatever t-shirt they wanted, or a sweatshirt, would probably run us between a total cost of about $1 to $1.50 per person for a paid membership, and out of their membership money and mailing it. Now, if we had GT coordinators that wanted to order them for their students or have their students buy one, then it would be a lot cheaper for them. And then they could put it on whatever they wanted. And, if we're just thinking this might be something really neat, we might add to that in a one color. It would be very economical as the 25 to 30 cents, or I think it was, hang on, I've got it right here. 20 cents, 15 to 20 cents to have one made if we ordered 75 of them. So I'll get the cost. I'm getting the cost all done right now. And, screen print transfers and things are big. We could, Ramona, I saw what you put in the chat. I'll look at stickers, because having that same thing done as stickers or in different formats, and being able to let those either give those or have students, coordinators even order them would be interesting. Concept. And Dustin, we've discussed, and I'm going to be working on that, on some other benefits that we could give with their free membership. Some of our different speakers and things, like checking with Chess Kid or some of the other ones, if they would give a price break to people if they get a student membership, different organizations, things like that, so that we could kind of give a list of things that they could possibly get a % off or get a free membership to. So trying to plan ahead so we have some things set up for that membership drive and have it out to everybody right when school starts.
And one thing I'm really excited about, I'm a little nervous too, is using the Star Chapter membership. You should receive an email when it's time for your membership to be renewed. And that will be an automatic thing this year. Hopefully, I haven't seen it, because we got it in July. We launched it in August. So some people paid over the summer and we gave them the prorated rate and whatnot, but that will be happening over the summer and into the fall before our next board meeting. So just be mindful of that. If you do happen to get an email, or as district directors, if people are asking you about membership renewal, hopefully it's seamless. But if there are any problems, I know Monica Springfield and I both go on the website, and several other of our execs can go on the website and update any information if they forget their username or their password to renew. But it should be seamless, which will be nice. Any questions for Karen or any other updates, Karen?
I think that's it. And I think at the hashtag, I mean, I like the hashtag YGT, but we may, you know, I'm still going to play with that, and we may try to add AGATE in there, or Arkansas at least, so that if they wear, you know, they're carrying there's something with their sticker on it or wearing their t-shirt, that people will know it's Arkansas. So we'll play with that.
And Texas was the one that's using the hashtag YGT, which I like as a hashtag, because the more people that use it, the more it generates buzz and so forth. And given the fact that Texas is a large state, it will have a lot of buzz already with their association being behind that. So thank you, Karen, for leading the way on that. All right, next on the agenda is the newsletter committee. Haley's not here. She had to teach a class this morning. In the bylaws, it says we do 3 newsletters. A fall, a winter, and a spring. She asked if we wanted to do it like a 4th one, an end of the school year or a summer, things like that. And I said, I'm fine with it. You know, the more the merrier, but it would just be more work on her. But I wanted to ask y'all as a board if we want to do a 4th one, since that's not protocol or our tradition, if y'all are okay with it, or if we should save it until the spring or the fall. I mean,
Did I miss the spring one? When was the spring newsletter?
maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was a spring newsletter. But I thought she sent a fall.
I've missed a newsletter here or there.
Maybe that's
We had the fall.
Spring. But she
We
wanted
may have had the
summer one, yeah.
pre-conference, and then there's usually a post-conference that has pictures, some summer opportunities, the winners. It's easy to put together because most of the material's written, but I think we're down a newsletter.
Maybe that's it. Sorry. There's been a lot of moving parts. Maybe she needs information for the spring newsletter, but wants to also do a summer or early fall.
Right. It like goes out in May, April or May.
Okay. Thanks for that update. Because you're right. I haven't gotten 3 newsletters. Okay.
And I'll be right back.
So what we'll need then, just to make sure the spring newsletter has all the information, Jennifer Park, would you send that like review or update, kind of more of a generic membership for AGATE 2021, any photos and stuff to Haley? Jennifer Thomas, would you do any webinar updates for the enrichment committee for Haley? We don't need to do anything with awards, Tim, but it might be nice to say it's never too early to start thinking of awards. And if there are any other pictures and stuff, Karen, you might want to add about membership renewals just to help streamline that process or make individuals aware of it.
She could also put the winners of the GT awareness for like pictures of the kids or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, the more the better, for sure.
Well, did we include the winners of the various awards that were presented in the last newsletter? Because if not, that needs to be in this one.
Good point.
It usually comes out whenever we've had this spring newsletter come out as early as the beginning of April and as late as the end of May in previous years. So
yeah, and since I have it written out, since we got it all written out and in the program, we could probably just pop it into the newsletter as well.
Right.
If not, I've got all the pictures of everyone. So, you know, that was part of the award ceremony.
I just think that that's important for those districts and those educators that received awards, because it was a virtual conference and it's easy to let that pass by and people don't realize they received an award. But if you get that AGATE newsletter, that's something that you can place in your 4.0 for monitoring, as well as share out with your district administrators that you received that award. I'm just thinking about those districts and you know, teachers and everyone that received those.
What are you thinking about for a deadline on getting that information in for this? Because if it's after the session, we could do a kind of a recap, legislative report that just a 1-pager on, you know, bills that are passed out or whatever.
I honestly have put this on the back burner because Haley's done such a good job. And I got it mixed up that we were doing a late or early summer. So we probably need to do a late spring. I would, let's shoot for March or May 1st. I think that's in a couple of weeks, gives us 3 weeks window, and that way it's not before the end of school.
Okay, thanks.
But I'll leave that up to Haley, but since she's not here, let's just tentatively say May 1st. Shoot for May 1st. Good question. Thanks, Christine, for pointing that out. Or did we lose Christine? No, there you are. You're in the middle. Okay. Let's jump down then to enrichment committee. I know Jennifer Thomas sent that webinar, I'm sorry, the survey out about the webinars yesterday. Jennifer, you want to give us an enrichment committee update?
Yes, I can. I'm going to share my screen. I just think it's really great that people have already started responding. We had 27 responses and it was just sent out yesterday. And we asked things like, how many webinars did you attend? And 37% of the 27 said 8 or more. So that's good. Nobody put none, so somebody watched something. And then everybody would recommend the webinar to a parent, teacher, or colleague. Pretty much all but 7% said that new research and gifted practices were given while watching. And then the topics were applicable. Somebody said a few people said somewhat, which, that is true. If you've been in this game for a long time, then you know a lot, and then things that you would like to see for next year, because we're always trying to brainstorm about, well, who do we know and who could present and what do you have in your district or your district? So they said curriculum ideas, whole group enrichment, hands-on activities, the latest research, projects, enrichment, perfectionism, anxiety, differentiation, affective needs, various types of gifted. And I want to say last night was great with the 2E information. And I just think that I'm hungry for more, if y'all got to catch that. If not, go ahead and look on the Facebook Live and see it. It was a great presentation. Strategies to engage online learning. It says, I enjoyed the project-based units that were shared, more online options for instructing students remotely. So you can see what we have here. They liked that it was just easy access. How to better serve underrepresented populations, even when about specifically about breaking race barriers is listed. Basic how-tos for local norming, the value and need for continued independent district level identification to keep gifted populations becoming zip code dependent. It says maybe an ADE representative could do one for parents on the basics of rules and regs. Okay, I hadn't read that one. That's why I went through that one a little bit more. That one's kind of newer. But more virtual lesson ideas. So people are responding. It's good information. Most of the people like that it's in the evenings, or they're saying maybe it could be during the school day, like how I guess we get the professional leave that we typically get when we go to a conference. Maybe that's what they're indicating with that, or just maybe a lunch break webinar. Maybe that could be an idea, since some people are saying that they want it during the day. And your favorite way of accessing the webinars. Most people are enjoying just registering and attending with the Zoom link. And then just looking on the website when it's posted. So that's good to know. And then let's see, the Facebook Live was the less of all of that, lesser amount of all that, which that's how we do it. But I guess that's just the way. It's good information. That's why we give these surveys. And when more people continue to respond, maybe that number will grow. And then I asked, well, would you like to present, so that we can kind of get some new speakers in there? And 3 people said they would. And then just additional comments. Most people just really have enjoyed it. They had great things to say. A lot of new teachers listened to them. So that is great that you can utilize this as a resource for new GT teachers. I mean, that's basically, I see a lot of that out there. So, and then I got so many ideas from webinars. It was tougher this year because I couldn't ask questions like normal, stuff like that. So basically, okay, there's a concern about some of the statements that were made regarding ESOL learners and a comment on their giftedness. Opinion was not research-based. Okay. So, I mean, everybody's kind of getting to tell their part about it. And I think that that's good that we offered this survey so that people can feel like members' voices are being heard. And, if there are some information, if there is information out there that's not research-based, we need to make sure that all of our speakers come prepared with research-based material. Maybe a criteria of, okay, if you present on this webinar, you represent AGATE, make sure you check these boxes, stuff like that. We can brainstorm on how to make these better, but, we would just love to hear back from the AGATE board on your opinion, how you feel it could be better. And just want everybody to have a role in it and get some valuable information from these.
Jennifer, how many people did you say responded so far?
27.
27. Okay, thank you.
And thanks for doing that. It's nice to have quantifiable data to justify what we're doing and whatnot, because a lot of times we get anecdotal stuff and it feels like, oh, it's not good or we're amazing or whatever, but it's nice to have actual data points to analyze. I will share my screen real quick just to show you on the website under resources, the members only tab. That's the first thing that's listed. And what I love about having the virtual conferences, we have all of those sessions that we can go back and watch, because normally an AGATE conference, we're so busy as board members, we don't always get to go to a lot of the sessions we want. So we have all of those sessions from the AGATE conference we can go back and watch, but we also have all of these as our library resources that we can share out. Starting back in July and going all the way till we uploaded today's Twice Exceptional from last night, in case y'all haven't got to watch any of them. So again, resource library, I think is a great asset for our organization. But thank you, Jennifer, for leading the way. I know I kind of threw you on the spot last July and said, let's do this. And it's important. We haven't spent any money, right?
No money.
All of these have been 100% free. And thank you for all of you on the board that have
time and knowledge. And Dustin's trying to be all modest and everything. He's a great visionary. This is his vision. I'm just assisting with it and adding bits and pieces here and there. So
I've attended most of the sessions. I've missed the one last night, and they've all been great. I don't always learn something brand new, but it really validates what I do know. So, I very much appreciate that part. I like the conversation, and I like hearing that some of you have the same issues that I have, and whether you're in a big district or a small district, and it's just good to have. It's like our own PLC, if you will, and I enjoy that.
And I do know some of our presenters are from out of state, like last night was from California. So they're not as familiar with our standards, and they probably have said or done some things throughout the year that aren't 100% in alignment with our standards. But I don't want to be rude and like interject all the time and say like, no, you're wrong, or that's not what we do. But there's a fine balance. So I'm trying to figure that out as we move forward as well.
I just want to say that I know there was a little bit of resistance to purchasing the webinar feature in Zoom, but I'm so glad that that was approved by the board, because that has made those much more professional in nature and just so polished versus just a regular Zoom. And I realize maybe it's a little limiting as far as communication and collaboration. I know I noticed on Jennifer's survey results, someone had written about how they really got good ideas from the chat feature. And maybe moving forward, we should offer some of those that do allow for collaboration with a regular Zoom feature to them. But I just think that webinar made it so polished and neat. So.
And I could say doing webinars all fall definitely helped prepare us for the virtual conference in February. I felt a lot more confident and prepared in introducing our keynote speakers and managing it, because I think we've done like 25 or 26 webinars. So that was nice, an unintended consequence.
Right. And then the other piece is if you're at home in the evening and your hair's on top of your head, nobody has to see you.
All right, any questions for Jennifer?
Just one more kudo, because this may be one of the most significant changes in services to our constituency that Agate's done in years. And I'm extremely excited about it because of the fact that it reaches out, and I think the attendance is growing probably. And I think the fact that it stays available and that but I do think we need to continually direct people through, the specialists and others, direct people to them so that folks who didn't watch it know that that resource is available. I think that's the main thing that comes with having a great service like that, is making sure that we continually make people aware that it's there. But kudos to Jennifer and to Dustin and everybody who's had anything to do with them, because I think it's one of the most significant things we've done as an organization in a long time.
Hey,
Hey,
Dustin.
Dustin,
Oh,
go ahead, Ron Kay.
Well, I just have one question. Were our parents, you remember I sent that list of all the email addresses for my Agate parents?
Yeah.
My affiliate, were y'all able to incorporate those and get that message out to them?
They should all have received, if they have verified their email address, when we
Okay.
give them, just like any other member, it will send them an email, but sometimes if it's not verified, there's a disconnect. It'll either go to spam or there'll be like a district blocker or something that blocks it. So if
Okay,
they have
thanks.
verified their email, they would have gotten all the information about our membership stuff.
Okay, thanks.
Dustin, I was just going to piggyback off of kind of what Davis was saying, like as far as services, like after I did my perfectionism ones, I really was, it was really interesting. I had a lot of parents that were reaching out to me from all over the state and asking questions. And it was like a really positive, great connection to make with parents. And they were just like thankful for our organization and had a lot of great things to say and just able to talk to somebody. So I just want to throw that out there, that I made some connections with some parents that I may not have otherwise communicated with in any sort of venue. So it was, just coming from presenter part and doing one of the webinars, I really enjoyed getting to make those connections.
Right. I think it offers a lot for parents since it's public like that, and anyone can go ahead and watch it even from the Facebook page, because on one of them you can see a parent say, oh, so this is not for parents, this is for teachers. That comment is left on there because they were ready to tune in, so I think that may speak to that. Maybe we should for next year kind of think about what kind of questions do our parents have, and are we always answering that for them? Because GT is one of the most talked about buzz words around, like, oh, is your child in GT? Well, what do you need to do to get in GT? So since it is something that parents are interested in, I could see that being something that we look into.
Yeah, great point. I know sometimes, like even last night, we had 17 people tuned in, plus about 4 or 5 on Facebook, hit and miss. It's not a huge turnout week to week, but what I do think is, just like what I've seen with Texas Association, I see it on their Facebook page. I'm like, well, look what they're doing. I may not tune in, but in my mind, I'm like, they're doing something. And I would think that that's the same thing that we're seeing, is our membership are getting the emails. They're seeing us on Facebook. They may not tune in, but they know we're doing something, or at least they know they can go back to it later if they can't watch it all the time. So I think that's a positive, that while numbers may not be like 27 is a great survey result, we have a membership of almost 400 or over 300 that we would love to have a larger number. We're building it, and it takes baby steps sometimes.
And it's also important to note that just because our survey said that, I mean, we could look at Facebook stats as well, because it provides data charts as well on certain things that you post. For instance, I'm seeing like 182 views on the one on March 13th, and last night's has like, I think 103. The one we had with about National Board had 282 views. So we can also incorporate that data in the report at the end of the year.
Good point.
That's what I was going to ask about is, do we have analytics on how many people go back and watch them after the fact? Is there any way to gather that kind of input? If we can, I would say if we collect those analytics and have a sense of how many people actually watch it after the fact, and then we can also put out, just reminders to the membership that that resource is available. Because I bet there's a bunch of people that would go if they were reminded that they had it to go to.
Yeah, we have the Facebook analytics, and because I've uploaded them all to YouTube as an unlisted, I can look at the views, and I think it's also public on how many views it has, so we can track that as well. But I think the biggest part is making sure our membership and others know that these are resources out there that they can go back and look at under the member resource page. Because as a specialist, when someone asks me something about ESL and gifted or twice exceptional, my resources are very limited, but I now can say I have a webinar I can share, and that's one. Here's some resources, or here's some experts that are local at universities or so forth that we can also share with. Good point, Davis. Thanks, Jennifer. Any other comments, questions? All right, it's 10 o'clock. I'm mindful. Do we need a break? All right, so let's do a let's do a 10-minute break if y'all are okay with that. Go use the restroom, get a cup of coffee or refill your tea, and we'll come back and we'll start with the ad hoc bylaws committee. And I think this would also be a good opportunity if you have not looked at the bylaw changes to update, do that over the next 10 minutes as well to help kill two birds with one stone. So we'll take a quick break and come back in 10 minutes.
Well, my friend worked with them there in Benton. She's doing something else now. But anyway, I met him, I guess, about last year. But I mean, I pitched him yesterday, so we'll see what happens. But you came up because I was asking him how far along he was with his classes and everything. So we'll see what happens.
Lean on him. And right, there's a lot of people who would be interested in him. I would just snap him up.
I'm working on him, so we'll see what happens. But your name came up when he mentioned the classes he was taking, and I was like, well, I in fact know Dr. Deeds.
And Carl also was awarded one of the AGATE scholarships.
Yep. He mentioned that
Hot Springs.
So we'll see.
So just congratulations on spying excellent talent. We have a really strong class going through. Carl's one of them. He's great. He's a rare one.
I want to be mindful of everyone's time because, like I said, we have still a lot of stuff to do, and we have quorum still. And the next bit of agenda item is the ad hoc bylaws committee that we appointed in the January meeting. So just to kind of give you a reminder, when we came in, this generally is done over the summer at our retreat when we update the Constitution or update the bylaws, but we didn't have the on-site, and it's difficult to do virtually. But we looked at these changes back last fall. We had some discussion. We made the recommendation to update our Constitution at the November meeting. We did so. We brought it again and discussed it at the January meeting. And so I'm tired of, I know y'all are tired of hearing about these things, and we keep kicking the can down the road. So thankfully, now the process has had a full year for us to look at what we've done as our board positions. We've almost had a full year or more in some of our cases of being on the board in our roles. And the good part is our bylaws can be changed at any time by a board. So it's not like we have to go before the full membership like we do with the constitutional changes. So if we see something or we think of it after the fact, we can always update and modify our bylaws again at our next meeting. But because our Constitution changed, we do need to update the bylaws to make sure the language is concurrent and so forth. So I'm going to turn it over to Monica Springfield, who volunteered to be our ad hoc committee bylaws chair, to update our bylaws and give an update.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Dustin. And the other committee members were Laura West and Karen Grady. So if in this conversation, you two ladies need to jump in and say anything, please do so. So basically, we met here recently and we went through all of the changes. We looked at them individually. We discussed, the rationale or any questions we may have had, and we directed those towards Dustin. And so most of it is language changes, like the memberships and how we've rearranged that. There were a few things that had changed, and we went through those and talked about those. And so I'll just give a little bit of a highlight. And I told Dustin before today that if he needed to jump in and say anything, just to go ahead. But one thing was under the responsibilities of the emeritus chair. And so originally announcing the retirees and collecting those names, those were done by the public relations person. And so we that duty was assigned over to emeritus, and as a committee, Karen and Laura, I'm speaking on your behalf, but speak up if you need to. We felt like that made sense. Emeritus is dealing with retirees, and that's sort of under their leadership. So we did not see any negative implications from making that change. The other thing that was talked about was we didn't have proxy votes. And so adding that, and we didn't see any reason why that wouldn't be a positive change. So if we needed to take care of business and we didn't have quorum, and someone, we all have different hats, and someone needed to utilize proxy votes, we thought that made sense as well. And the other maybe sweeping change was the nominating committee. And so what was discussed in the bylaws and everything we looked at was those were elected positions. And so the proposed change is to actually move that to our district, under our district director's responsibility, and still have the immediate past president chairing that committee. And so I'll just share a couple of things that we talked about in group. We thought that did make sense. The district directors are elected, and they're elected to represent different parts of the state. So we thought that them being involved on that committee with our immediate past president gave us a more global view of individuals that might be put up on our slate. So we didn't have a problem with making that change. However, we do have some that have been elected and are serving on that committee, and we certainly don't want to lose their input or expertise. So those individuals would not come off of that committee. They would roll off once their time served was expired. So we did not really see any issue, but with making that change, I don't know if anybody wants to comment, or Dustin, how you want to do that, but we basically as a committee decided to come forth today and kind of put it forth as a motion to present all changes and to accept all changes as presented in the document that Dustin shared with us.
Okay, Karen, I need you to, I'm sorry, Monica.
No, you're fine.
Walk that, I need a bigger picture on the nomination committee. We have 4 nominated people that are elected. We have 4 elected people who serve on the nomination committee, and you're growing. The proposal is to grow that committee by the 4 directors as well.
Just until those positions expire. So we will be rather large moving forward, but then once those elected nominating committee members, once their term expires, we would not be re-electing new members. So at some point we're going to get to, it would be immediate past president chairing, and then the other committee members would be the district directors. But we didn't want to, we've asked people to serve on that. We've elected people to serve on that. And we didn't feel like saying now we don't need you, we're just going to let you go. We didn't feel like that was very fair, or we weren't in favor of that. We thought they're part of this committee, let's have them continue until their term expires, but there wouldn't be a re-election of that position. Did I answer that, Dustin or Dr. Dietz? Is that
the question you have, Christine?
I just needed to see it. So I just needed to see it in my mind. So we have, we would reduce the board by 4 people. We would add additional responsibilities to the district directors to be the talent search on the board.
The nominating committee
right?
is not on the board.
I'm sorry?
The nominating committee is not on the board. They're invited guests.
Yes, they're invited guests, but they would eventually roll off, and we would no longer nominate and elect the nominating. Are we proposing to dissolve the nominating committee?
No, the nominating committee's the formatting of the nominating committee is just changing. Instead of independently elected members, it will be the immediate past president and the 4 district directors. So it'll still be the 5 composite. It's just they won't be independently elected nominating committees, because I think that's been part of the confusion that we heard from past nominating committee members, is that are they on the board or are they not? And some past conference chairs, like, did they get board privileges? Did they not? And that gray area is always uncomfortable. And if the goal of the nominating committee is to help nurture new talent, there's no better people than those representing their districts across the state.
My only concern with that, as a person who started on AGATE Board in the nominating committee position, is that it's kind of an easy gateway position to feel like you're not taking on huge responsibility and get your feet wet. And because you're invited to board meetings, I was at every board meeting as a nominating committee person. Couldn't vote. Bill Wascom had to remind me all the time that I couldn't vote, because I would try to vote and make motions the first time. And then I learned I can't vote or make motions as nominating committee. But I mean, it can help with increasing involvement and helping people feel more comfortable taking on a larger role on the board. So I see both sides, but that is, I just wanted to share, that was my experience with beginning involvement in AGATE Board and conference committee. And so I just wanted to chime in on that one.
Well, I appreciate you doing that, Crystal. The nominating committee was created by our founders for specifically that reason. They are outside the board. They are invited to view the board, but it is a way to include people who either don't have time to serve or never thought of themselves as a place of service or don't have the expertise, but they have a first row view to AGATE. And the people who are coming into the nominating committee are beyond thrilled and excited and will come up our leadership pipeline because of the way in. I had a very similar door open to me from the very beginning with AGATE. I would never be a district director. That just wasn't available to me, but I could have served on the nominating committee. I did ask you in the fall that you give me a year to work with the nominating committee and to see what we're going to do, because it can be one of those things that a past president can just forget about. But I'm wanted to share with the board, the people who are rolling off and then the new ones coming in are very excited, and they represent different parts of the state and have different conversations that you wouldn't hear at a co-op meeting. Now, just wanted to say, at a co-op meeting, I have no idea what goes on at a co-op meeting because I was rarely part of one coming from LRSD. It just wasn't one of those excused absences or invitations only. So I know there is a world out there for GT leaders that goes on that I have no idea about it. But I think for AGATE, our nomination committee are like those untapped potential people who have conversations at the school district superintendent level that are going to help us spot talent. And I think talent comes from different parts of the state. I don't want to say that I'm not open to it, but I'm just a real slow and thoughtful change on this. I might still have the wrong idea that the nomination committee would roll off. They're going to start in July. They're going to have a 2-year serve. So in 2 years down the line, all the nominating committee members would roll off, and it would be basically Dustin working with the 4 district directors. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to just make a stand for the 4 people who are going to be on the nomination committee. It is a way to include people who wouldn't normally be included. I know the people who served on the nomination committee. They're absolutely brilliant people. I recognize that in years past, they may have gone untapped in terms of their opinion. But when Tim Smithy nominates somebody or suggests, who would be really good for an AGATE position, you pay attention. Tim Smithy was on the nomination committee. And
well, let's ask Tim then. Tim, on your experience on the nominating committee, was it worthwhile and as meaningful as?
Well, I think that of course I actually have in my room, Jennifer Melogian is next to me, and she's been elected to be on the nominating committee in the next rotation. For me, it was the idea that I really wanted to serve. I had been webmaster before then, but then nominating committee. I didn't, and you've all heard, I didn't get a single email, didn't get anything. And I went to the president and said, hey, I'm not getting to do anything. What do I need to do? And, it could have been a communication issue with the past president. I don't know what the issue was. My issue is that the nominating committee is elected, but you still get no voice. If you change the format to you get a voice, you get some sort of feeling of belonging. I never did like to go to something that I couldn't really say anything, that it didn't matter. And to me, yes, you're looking for talent, but you also, it is an opportunity to bring somebody in and to bring a different voice and to bring a different perspective. And because you're elected, I think you need to have a vote. You need to have some sort of say in it. I just don't like kind of like a defunct position that you're put in, that all you get to do is really listen. If you change the format to where those particular nominating committee had a voice that could be heard, because I'm sorry, AGATE is great, but we always need different voices. You always need a different opinion, and you need to bring in youth from time to time. I think that's more of my opinion, that I want to see that position. If you're truly elected, you need to have a voice.
That is such an important point, Tim. Thank you. We struggled with this during my presidency, and I had the opportunity to speak to past presidents about it. And the original concept was to keep them isolated, to keep them apart, so that we live in different times. Old AGATE, Davis knows, old AGATE was a hoot and a battleground and a turf battle. I don't see AGATE that way. anymore. You know, it was different. And now I think it's just amusing, but I know really important people's feelings were hurt and sidelined. And I know that that's not what AGATE does anymore. So the whole point of the nomination committee was to keep them apart and sacred and, you know, almost virgin ears to all the muck that was going on in meetings. That doesn't happen anymore. So the idea of bringing our new fresh in, and they've got to see how a meeting works, right? In order to say, well, who do I know that has leadership potential? To give them a voice, I don't think that's an issue. And I'll tell you why. If we take if we considered the positions that are nominated by the president versus the people elected who now have a voice, a president potentially has more appointed people that could swing a vote than elected people. If we bring in the elected people, it evens the vote. And I know all of us care about that. Having a fair representation, because we don't ever want to have an agate where you get your buddies together and you just plow through the at will. Now, I really appreciate what
I think
the ad hoc committee has done and presented. It takes a lot of thought, and I appreciate this discussion. I land on the side of giving people votes versus eliminating
Can we let Karen
historical votes.
or Laura, do y'all want to pipe in as the committee member either? Do y'all have any other updates?
No, I mean, and for me, I like listening to both sides because this is my first time doing it. I feel like, I don't want to say I don't have a dog in this fight, but I haven't been around long enough. So I could go either way. I mean, I don't want this to hold up passing the rest of the bylaws if this needs to be something separate. But I've enjoyed the discussion.
Good. Karen?
Yeah, and I see both sides of what everyone is saying. And I know in our conversation the other day and thinking of the district directors is the interaction that they have with the different GT specialists, and that we have coordinators that don't necessarily speak up and are real active, or maybe newer that even a specialist, or that the ones the district directors, as they hear about what's going on in different districts. And that was one of the talks we had about using the district directors and having that representation from around the state. As someone who gets involved in things, obviously, and I mean, I'm newer to the board, but when I was a coordinator, you know, my first step into learning about AGATE was volunteering at AGATE. And if I would not have left the classroom to take a different position, then I would have pursued you know, becoming more involved in that. So I don't necessarily, I see what everyone says is that's an easy way to get in, but for those who really, you know, some of them that have a passion for it or are really interested, they get, see what we do with the AGATE conference and things like that. So I don't think that's necessarily a limiting factor for some of them. And, you know, sometimes our district coordinators may know even more about the people that you would be looking at nominating than the nominating committee might. So I see both sides to it. I think that it's a good discussion to have to see what, you know, what the board as a whole feels. That's why we're, you know, all here, and we can have these discussions and see what we feel is best if we need to make a change.
Well, and exactly. And then that's why the nomination committee is set up to take nominations and then do the phone calls and then do the emails to the people who they're the sounding board for the nominations. It's not just done by the committee. It's not just who Christine knows. So we put out the call for nominations. And I'll tell you, Dustin, you will have this experience. It's crickets. It is crickets. So it is incumbent upon you as past president to start making the phone calls and to call people and district directors. the nomination committee would love to hear from you. We want to know, who are your talented go-getters? Who do we want to start bringing in the pipeline? Give the nomination committee a chance to do their job, not to have the district directors to do more, because we would like to see the district directors have full-bodied representation in the newsletters, and invite us to your webinars, and to do all those things. We want to have everything firing on all pistons, and not give people more work, but just to make sure the people who are in place to do what they have been empowered to do.
So along those lines, though, I feel like it's the bystander effect. Our district directors, I've spoken with them over the last year, and I said, what do you think about this? Right now, the nominating committee is not representative of the state. I mean, we try to diversify it, but it could all come from Fayetteville, or it could all come from Little Rock. What I like about the new change is that we are regionally specific in terms of spreading across the state. But it also, instead of saying a district director is welcome to participate, sometimes it's easier said than done. I think if we put the onus on our district directors to say, who are the leaders in your district that we need to recognize, I think that's empowers our district directors to assist in that process. The other issue I would have with it, and I know historically there's been changes, but I've always seen, when I was nominated as president-elect, it wasn't a nominating committee, it was the past president. The past president basically said, do you want to do this? I never met with the nominating committee to become president-elect. I don't know, Jennifer Park, did you do the same? Did the past president and the nominating committee come to you and say, why do you want to run, or anything along those lines?
I talked to Carm, yeah, past president.
But did you talk to the nominating committee?
No.
And that's what I'm worried about, is that the nominating committee has just become a position. And as Tim pointed out, they don't really do anything, but they are elected. And I had to field multiple conversations from nominating committees this year about, what do we get? Do we get free resources for the conference? Do we get, are we part of the board meetings? Do we get to go to free hotels or whatnot? And I think it's that gray area that we've had long enough that it's an extra part of the board that needs attention. And I know we've kicked it down the road a lot, but as the nominating committee, I didn't get to, I participated in one meeting that we had, and 3 of the 4 nominating committee members showed up for one meeting. As you pointed out, we had no contested elections this year. I would love to see contested elections. I think that helps make a democratic organization more democratic, to have contested next year president-elect, or next year treasurer, or next year, district director positions. I think that's what I've heard from grumblings from members, is that they think our organization is just, we're reappointing ourselves and it's the same faces year in, year out. And I think that's something I would love for our board to become more diverse and more geographic, but also a wide variety of co-op, university, classroom teachers, coordinators. And not to say we haven't done that, but our board, we did it for a year, and our board didn't change. We didn't see any new faces. We have a couple of new nominating committee members, but again, that's that gray area. If they're not as active in participating, then it's not achieving its goal. Davis, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to say that historically, so goes the past president's leadership role with the nominating committee. So goes the nominating committee, how enfranchised they are to the process, how engaged they are to the process, to what degree they are actually fostered into the board through that role or not. Depends on how the past president handles it, and it varies. There was a time when AGATE's board developed little policy, a big book, in which each different role developed, here's how we do this role. And that book was passed on. Now, that may have had its flaws, because at one time it kind of locked us into some policies and procedures that we had to change bylaws to move away from. But this may be one of the areas where we needed some consistent policy, not policy, but rules, and how we're going to do the role of nominating committee. and get the most out of it and get a recruitment of people from regions of the state. Seems reasonable to me that if we kept a nominating committee that's elected, the district directors could be very engaged and be the primary sources of where the nominations for those positions would come from, to make sure we have that regional representation. Then we've got a lower level engagement to the board that gives us a conduit to bring new people in, but at the same time granting them voting privileges so they don't feel that disenfranchisement that Tim was talking about. I think it bears some more discussion, and I think you could easily maybe, I know it doesn't take place for 2 years, but I'm hearing enough reason to really reconsider this, to not move on with that part, but not hold up the rest of the recommendations of the committee at this point in time, because I really think that group could be used and has been in the past. I know of 2 or 3 different people who came in through the nominating committee who would not have probably ever become leaders in AGATE if they hadn't have had that opportunity to be pulled in on a regional basis. But again, it depends on how the past president actually uses that role. And we've seen a lot of variance in how that's handled over the years. I have. So I'm excited about this. I think this is very, very significant discussion, and I hate for us to move too quickly into a change that we've got this much, consideration of.
I totally agree with that, Davis. That's why we proposed this in the fall. We looked at it extensively. We gave Christine, as she requested, a year to do the process. We did it again in January. We said, well, let's not hastily do it in January. And we even formed an ad hoc committee to review this. I just don't want to keep kicking the can down the road, because it is a great in theory. I just don't think in practice it has been the meat that we think it is. And I say that from my experience, but also if we really want to retain new ideas and grow leadership, we can do that with our committees. We have an awards committee. We have the enrichment committee. We can ask people to join those committees and get experience through AGATE that way, rather than this standalone committee that, quite frankly, I mean, they haven't been as effective in years past. I know, even speaking for this year, I've had a couple people ask us, can we challenge? Like, can we still throw our name into contention, because they didn't know that the nomination committee ended.
Well, that is a bigger issue than the nominating committee, because the ballot goes out. We do a call for nominations. We do a call from the floor. That's just people not understanding the process. But what I would like to do, because we did have an active nominations committee this year, we did, and we approached multiple people. The people on the ballot would be the people who said yes. I get about 3 no's to every 1 yes. And for a variety of reasons. It just may not be the year to serve, or it may not be the big one. But having said that, this year that's coming up is critical. We are going to have a new president-elect, a new secretary, 2 new nominating committees, and a district director or 2. It is a big election year, and we do want to have a nice, big, full ballot. It's been my experience for the last 10 years that as soon as the president's position has a challenger on there, and you remember this, they announce it at a meeting. Instead of telling Dustin, you and I have talked about it privately, instead of saying, Christine and Carm, we've nominated you for president. They announce it at a board meeting, and we both go, and then one of us backs out. So there's just some things that need to be handled off the board away from the board table, to set us up to have a nice big fat ballot with choices, which is absolutely our game. There's not a year that goes by that says, we used to have contested ballot. I agree, and we were going to work toward that. So
But I
what
can
you
remember
see
the last
for
one.
you as well in our Zoom screen are the people who said yes and the people who are committed to agate. And we are a rare breed. We just are. But I know there's other people out there who would like to. I would propose that we move forward without this change. However, an acknowledgement that people have worked hard and have had discussions. I would appreciate it had been part of that discussion so we could have talked about this and what I know from talking with past presidents and what I've viewed just on my years on being on the board. But I don't mind having I don't think there'd be an objection to having an augmented nominations committee meeting where we work with the board directors and I want to have a robust discussion about who do you know, who we have talent, and then let the nominations committee go after those people and have those conversations. If you accepted a position without having a conversation from one of the nomination committee or the past president, I do apologize. We are having conversations. We do.
Okay.
Sometimes it's through an email.
Point of information
With
though.
people you know quite well.
The motion, I believe, from the ad hoc committee was to accept the changes. The good part is we're not doing away with it for 2 years. They will rotate off. So this year we will have a very robust nominating committee if this motion of the bylaws changes goes through, of 8 members on the nominating committee chaired by the immediate past president, and it will just slim down over 2 years. What I also think is a good part though, hold on, Christine. What I think is a good part though is if we see that this doesn't work, then that can be an easy bylaw change again. That's not in our bylaws, can be changed at any time.
I would respectfully say, please don't slim down the nomination committee because we have 2 positions that'll be on the ballot. And may I say, then Dustin, as the past president in 1 more year, that can be your initiative. I would like to see it through. I would like the board's permission to see this responsibility through. And if it doesn't work, then you've got 4 years of data that it doesn't work.
And my only concern is we keep postponing these things, that if we're going to slim down the board and make these changes, like we just elected 2 new nominating committee members. If we're wanting to make these changes, it will be another 2 years before we're making these changes. So I will entertain a motion from the ad hoc committee unless there are other comments or questions.
I have a question. So can we approve part of these and not all of them? The changes?
I don't see why not.
Okay,
But
so like.
the problem will be is we'll have to go through what parts we want to approve, what parts we don't want to approve.
Well, and thinking about all of the discussion that's been held here concerning this, and I know that, we've like Crystal shared, that's the way she entered into the board. I know when I was immediate past president, I had a hard time engaging with those that were in the nominating committee and actually getting nominations from them. However, we live in a different world now where we can Zoom at any time with anyone. So, you may be facing a change with that as far as engaging that nominating committee in a different way. How I feel about it personally is just that if we continue with the nominating committee, then their role needs to be redefined and re-engaged, and so that they feel like they're a productive part of the board. Because I'm hearing both sides of that, in that people that were not on the nominating committee didn't feel that they were utilized to their, greatest extent. And, I think that's why we're moving to remove this, because we didn't feel like we were getting that benefit of that committee. So I don't know how to go about maybe forming a committee to determine what this committee will do or what we need to do for that. But maybe that's something we should consider, knowing that the times have changed and it is easier for people to meet via Zoom than before. I just remember reflecting back on when I was past president, how hard it was to engage with those individuals, because I was primarily trying to call and email them. And then because they were so new to the board, they didn't know who to nominate for anything, because they didn't have maybe a lot of experience in gifted ed. So they didn't even really know our GT community. as a state, really, unless it was somebody they attended classes with. So those are my 2 cents worth. I was just taking the minutes and thinking thoughtfully through the things that were shared here. So if we can accept the motion for, or move forward with an ad hoc member, maybe redefining the motion so that we could leave this off until further review, I would certainly feel more comfortable with that, because I know we have some very strong feelings about it on the board.
I think that's good. I do agree too. I know that Kelly is on nominating, and we have talked several times, and I know that she has done a lot with you, Christine, and so you guys have communicated more. So I do think that's probably is helpful, and I think it kind of has perked her up to be thinking that she might could do something on in the future. So I do see both sides, definitely. So I think that would be something that we might check out, like Ramona said. But I do think the part playing a part, like she never comes to board meetings because she doesn't know where she, just like Tim said, what do you do? You know, why do you need to be here? So,
and it's never been the expectation that they attend. It's always been worded as you were invited to attend, but you're not required. And so that kind of was their out if they had something else.
But then that still defeats the purpose of even saying you want to be on a nominating committee. I remember when I was first elected on that, and then Beth Sullivan, I believe, and we were out at Russellville, I think, and we sat through the whole thing, and we were so excited to be there. And yes, I'm still glad that I attended, because it did help me learn what the AGATE Board does, what was discussed, and all of that. So if anything, I would say that person needs to be interested in the AGATE Board and possibly want to serve if they are deciding to accept to be on the nominating committee. So that's one thing that I say is a positive of it. Other than that, you know, whether the communication's there or not, it was kind of like we just sat there and we really had feelings about certain things y'all were talking about, and then we just had to be like a mute. So so that was, and we talked about it too at dinner. We were like, well, I thought this, but I don't know, you know. So we made a joke out of it, but I do think that I think that when you say you want to be on that, or when you solicit for people to be on that, you have to say, well, this is your door into learning about AGATE, the AGATE Board. Let it be that purpose if you're trying to redefine things, so that people don't come in thinking that they're supposed to be running something, you know. I think that sometimes your expectations of it needs to be clarified. When you said you're going to be on nominating, you're just that, on nominating. You're not supposed to be, you know, just lay out the rules so it's not any confusion, but that's your door into the AGATE Board.
And it is a recruiting tool.
Yeah,
for leadership.
That's the way I saw it. But it did feel funny though, that we were just sitting there in that meeting and we were like, oh.
Just think,
that's what we felt.
You get elected to something and you attend it just like you attended, and then you don't get to say anything or have an opinion or anything like that, then that creates a second class system.
It does.
You know, that gave me bad taste, you know, for that part. And, you know, if you're trying to build AGATE, then you want to be so inclusive that everybody is involved. To me, I don't have an issue, honestly, with the nominating committee, as long as that person feels like they belong. You know, that person needs to be here at these meetings. That person needs to have a voice, and they need to have a vote. If you voted for them in office, they need a vote. That's my opinion.
And I mean, like I said, Beth and I did talk about that, and I don't think she would be ashamed of me saying that, because we were kind of just like, well, but we know about the board now. That led us into getting other things. So
Jennifer, I remember that. And
I was sitting up here voting, and you were like, Jennifer, you're not supposed to.
As a side note to this too, regarding the robust discussion that we had about the ballot and having multiple people run for roles, I do believe there needs to be some guidance for those people that are on that ballot. From past experience, there were some things that occurred when we had more than one person on a ballot that could be hurtful to others. So I think there needs to be some guidance regarding if you are on that ballot and you've been nominated to the ballot, on how to proceed with I mean, we've had campaigning.
Yeah.
We've had some things happen that were kind of, I don't know.
They were under the table. Yeah.
Right, very much
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if we have a contested ballot, that'll be, yes, the rules of the game. Fair play. Absolutely.
It seems like,
Handle it like any GC.
So I'm going to call call to order though, because we have
Yeah.
want to talk, and I know time is limited, and I promise we wouldn't be here all morning. Monica, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so just to be clear, when these changes were given to our committee, that was the only change we were given. We weren't given other ideas or opportunities. So I know there's some strong opinion against it, and I'm just trying to protect myself and my committee. I don't want anyone to feel like we're making some kind of charge towards sweeping changes or breaking down the history of agate. We didn't see anything wrong with what was presented, and I still don't think there's anything wrong, but after hearing discussion, we realized that, there's more to it. So I just want to, Laura and Karen and I are kind of chatting privately and texting because, we just want to make sure everybody understands that that's what was given to us, and that we had a little bit of discussion about it. We honestly didn't see anything wrong with the district directors being part of that, but we are seeing that there's other pieces to that. And so, Laura, Karen, do either one of you want to say anything? Because I just want to be clear to the board.
We're not trying to ruin everything.
Yeah, we don't want anyone to think that we were trying to make some kind of sweeping changes. We didn't have anything else to look at.
as the oldest member here, I do not think that in any way, shape, or form. I appreciate the work y'all put into it. I think that what you proposed prompted this discussion, which got some things done that I know Dustin wishes would have been done almost a year ago. But it doesn't matter. The fact that we are having that discussion now, it looks like there's real traction for cleaning up the whole concept of the nominee, which needs to be clean. It needs to be very clear, and to where anybody on the outside that asks, how do you elect your members and how do you elect your leadership, that it's a clear process. And right now it's not. And I think Christine has expressed a desire, and she certainly realizes the urgency of getting it done. But I have nothing but appreciation for the work this committee's done. And I know the motivations of you people and why you're doing what you're doing. That's never been in question in my mind. But I think this has been an issue for a while. And it is good that we're getting it taken care of. And I appreciate Dustin's patience with allowing the process to go, even though I'm sure it's much later in the year than he would have liked for it to happen. But I'm confident that the district directors, the existing members of the committee, and Christine can come up with some policy procedures for how that's going to work that will make the most of it and actually recruit people to the board and hopefully address the issues Tim brought, which I agree with wholeheartedly, that they need to have a vote, and they can't be disenfranchised from the process and expect them to take their role seriously. So that's all.
So Dustin, after hearing the conversation and speaking to Laura and Karen, we would like to propose all other changes as presented, but we would not like to move forward on the nominating committee. There's obviously room for discussion and a need for discussion, and we don't feel comfortable as a committee moving forward with a change that's not totally worked out or has all the hiccups fixed as has been shared by the board. So I mean, I know you wanted to get things done, but unfortunately we don't feel comfortable with that part as a committee.
No, and I think we can all respect that. And the good part is we can change our bylaws at any time as a board. And even if we punted until the next board meeting, it still wouldn't change anything in terms of timetables. So I don't want anybody to feel like, again, like I said in January, I don't want anybody to feel like I'm running things. and pushing my agenda. I'm trying to clean up the board and the agenda and the Constitution, update the language. So with that said, we still have time. I think if you're okay with it, Monica, Karen, and Laura, if y'all are okay with staying as an ad hoc committee, taking input from the board. So if any other board members would like to add any information or makes additional suggestions, we can, you said table that part, which would be just the nominating committee part for the bylaws, and then pass the bylaws as amended with the exception of the nominating committee mention. Is that your motion, Monica?
Yeah, Laura, Karen, don't let me speak on that, but that's a conclusion I've come to from our chatting and texting, is that we feel comfortable with the proxy votes, the language cleanup, the emeritus responsibility of retirees, but we do not want to move forward with nominating, any changes to nominating at this point.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table. Is there for updating the bylaws as recommended, minus the nominating committee changes? Is there a second?
I second. Ronnie
Second
K.
by Ronnie K. All right, any discussion? Because I know we honed in just on the nominating committee, but there are other aspects that we mentioned.
Okay, help me with the wording on this, y'all. Monica made a motion that the ad hoc committee recommendation be approved for
Updating the bylaws.
approved for updating the bylaws.
As recommended, minus the nominating committee changes.
Minus the nominating. Okay, got it. Sorry.
Is that correct, Monica?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see anything else. The nominating committee is the only piece that we wish to not move forward on.
Okay, any other further discussion? And we do have quorum still. We need 9 members for quorum, and we have 13 by my count. Because again, not everybody here is a active voting member. All right, with that being said, then all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All right, all opposed, same sign. There we go, motion passes.
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
Ronnie K.
Okay, sorry, Ronnie K.
Good discussion. I know it's lively. There's passionate feelings on all sides, and I appreciate our ad hoc committee listening and making that recommendation to punt, because again, it's not changing the timetable. These are not permanent changes. We can make these changes if we see it doesn't work, we can always go back and change it. Bylaw changes are easier, I should say, than constitutional changes. All right, because we still have a lot to discuss. Monica, I'm gonna put you back on the floor. AGATE 2022 update. Do you want to give us anything as a teaser or a precursor?
I mean, I've been working with Dustin already, just, getting the venue details worked out. I do have some, Jennifer and I have talked a little bit, and we have some people in place. And so just kind of now that we're done with our AGATE 2021 and we've talked about results and everything, we're just trying to kind of get things sorted out with what keynotes we may have, breakout sessions, and we're definitely going to have a family engagement piece, because that's just an area of passion for me. I'm a parent of gifted students as well as an educator, so I like that parent student piece in there. I don't know if that's what you wanted or if you want more.
You got the dates?
No, but you do.
It's the exact same dates. That's the beauty of it.
Okay, I thought that was it. You will notice that it has moved to a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and that is because our intentions is to try to offer that parent student piece on Saturday, because we feel like we will have more participation and better attendance if we can have a day where school and work won't be a conflict for families.
So it's February 24, 25, 26.
2022 in Northwest Arkansas. All right. And one of the things
You want to add anything?
I was
know.
just say your committee, yours and Jennifer Parks, you are co-chairing again, and y'all's conference committee will probably start planning and hit the ground running. Because if I remember right, we started last April for the virtual to plan to make sure it was successful. So that committee will probably start meeting and organizing to get ready any day now if you haven't already.
Yeah, we'll go with any day now. We haven't met yet. We've just been trying to get everything wrapped up from our our conference we just had, and breathe for a minute and start kind of thinking things through. So Jennifer and I will touch base, and we'll be happy to report something out maybe at our next board meeting.
Okay.
Okay. If anybody has any ideas or input, I know Jennifer and I would love to hear from you. So thank you.
The bar has been set high because we had AGATE 2021 so good. So we're expecting a return on site just as good, if not better. All right. If y'all have updates, especially comments for conference committee or breakout proposal, because I know Jennifer's in the evals or Monica's evals that we sent out, like Chad Morris's Erie, Arkansas was a very popular one session that we had. And I'd love to have him do a second one or a follow-up again. But if there are other presentations that we need to solicit, it's never too early to solicit for proposals. But I'm
Amanda's
sure
was
Amanda,
Amanda's was mentioned as a favorite too. She's not on here.
no, she's there. She's in the, I see her.
Oh,
She's still here.
okay.
But we need to be thinking about that. We don't want to rush at the last minute. And I'm going to make sure we ask, and this was one of Tim's recommendations too, that we ask like GAM and the Kansas Association to partner with us, since we're in proximity and close proximity to Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri, to encourage them to attend Northwest as well. Okay, so next on the agenda is the retiree gifts. I know this is another kind of unique, touchy topic. This is one of those issues. I want us to honor and recognize our retirees. In conversations with Barbara Pritchard, I'm going to paraphrase here since she's not here. She says retirees don't want just another thing. They don't want like just another item to put on a shelf. And we don't, as a president, I've noticed we hadn't line item budgeted retiree gifts. And so I was going to ask, with y'all's permission, I don't think we need to approve this until the next budget comes around, but with your permission, I was going to request that we specifically line item $250 for retiree gifts rather than taking out of whatever fund we can, because Debbie says it's not in, it's just been a presidential discretion or conference, whatever we can find the money. And I think it's important that we do honor our retirees for members. But as Barbara's point was, we've done plates, we've done luggage tags, we've done the diamonds that Christine found, and that it can vary from price to price or year to year, and it really comes down to whoever that person is. And Barbara's recommendation was that we just give a gift card, and that's something that they can individually use. I personally don't care. I just want to recognize the retirees and make them feel appreciated. I brought it before the executive committee. Ramona's point of doing, was it the saucer plate? Or not saucer plate, the, I'll let you.
It was a charger, I think, that had, it was inscribed with their name and the Agate logo. Lynn Harrison, I believe, was the chair at that, the PR person at that time, but I think that was the last gift that was given.
Okay. And like I said, I want to honor our retirees. I don't think this has to be a board vote, but I do think it would be nice to get some input from the board. The executive committee, we're all on the same page. Like, we don't want to not do something, but we don't want to just spend money for the sake of spending money and then they don't care about it. And Barbara's recommendation was let the retirees spend the money how they want, give them a $25 gift card or a $20 gift card. And I said, if you don't think that's too impersonal, Barbara, and since she's the chair of that committee, she said that's what her other emeritus members said that they would prefer. But again, that can change from year to year, and it can change from emeritus president or emeritus chair to president's preference. But
I think if that's what the committee recommended, we ought to go with that. By the way, I wanted to tell y'all that one of my GT teachers, that she suddenly died in her sleep. I don't know if y'all remember Darlene Black, and her husband was Joe Black. Governor Beebe appointed him to the Board of Education here in the state, and she was our GT teacher. She suddenly died, but she retired a few years ago. And just wanted to throw that out there in case anybody knew. They probably knew Joe Black. He was on the State Board of Education.
I know the movie.
Yeah.
Remember Joe Black? Yes, there was a movie. Joe Black was just a wonderful, he's a bank investment banker, very historical family, the very first aviation family in the state of Arkansas. First, they were owners of their farmland. For African Americans, that was huge, big farmland people in Jackson County. I don't know, it's just broken my heart.
Okay, well, if y'all are fine by it, to kind of piggyback off what Ronnie K said, we can leave that as an emeritus chair decision, but we do need a line item money specifically for that gift.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Where it is right now in the budget, it just says president's discretionary spending, like 125 or 135. That's just where the gifts would come from. But get that line item in there under conference, I think would just be so much better, especially now that we got a little wiggle room with money. Agreed.
Okay, well, be on the lookout for next year's proposed budget for that. I put on the agenda Yale researchers request. I get random emails from people, and I'm sure Christine and Carm and Ramona and all Agate presidents beforehand have requesting that we share out stuff to our membership. And my thought is, as long as we're not inboxing everyone every single day with random things that are not important, then to do it. But I don't want it to look like we're endorsing it. And specifically, what I got solicited by was this research proposal by Yale to research giftedness and vegetarianism. So again, I don't want to not share that out, but if it's research and it can help and they're willing to share the findings and whatnot, I was going to do it, but I thought I need to bring it before the board's attention to say, are y'all okay with us just sharing it out as an option for participation as those come through?
You know, I was wondering, because we get all sorts of stuff too, Dustin, and that's prompted the email this week. If Agate had something like a bulletin board where you could post that link, we get at the center, we get all these emails from schools and charters all over the United States who are looking for teachers. Other than sharing them with our graduates and putting them on our website, I'm just thinking, I just know some of our membership would be interested in that. And then our summer programs, if we just had a page where some of that could be organized or listed, and then an email from Dustin or from the webmaster that the bulletin board's been updated, take a look. That is something easy. I'm always interested in what's coming into your inbox, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of stuff that's coming in to different inboxes that I can't imagine what the state gets that would be interested to, I think, be interested to our general membership. So how would we handle that?
I don't know. And
I think that is a good idea, because we did notice some people were, I mean, we don't want to send too many because, Dustin, I know there were some that were unsubscribed when we were going through conference stuff, right? They unsubscribed from our emails. So, I mean, I think if you do too many though, then people will, but if there was a way to do just a bulletin board and say it's been updated, that'd be good.
Could we add that to the website? Just have him add another tab that would be a bulletin board or FYI or something? I'm on the Iowa listserv, and it's getting crazy. Like that one guy's crazy. If y'all know who I'm talking about, Mr. Otis. I don't even know him, but he adds stuff that should not be added. But if we had there where you knew, if I'm going to this site, I'm choosing to look for all of this, that's a different story. So maybe if we just had a tab on the Agate web page. Yeah,
my only concern was, and I've run into this, is that if it's open to where anybody could do it, we get, and Monica can approve this too. I get like people going on our website saying, click this, it's great porn or whatnot. And I can delete the email, but I don't want to have to go and monitor and police that board of those spam things. And that was one of the reasons we shifted from our website to the new website, because that way your emails aren't listed, and we hopefully won't have like, hey, I'm Dustin and stranded in Africa, please send me.
Could it be a doc where we just add those links?
From our end? Yeah, I guess if Monica and I want to monitor it in that regard, we can just add as requested.
Right. It would be a curated link. I mean, certainly you test the link to see what it is. But there's some great opportunities out there that I know our membership would be interested in. We just have, it would be wonderful for Agate to help share in that, and also drive traffic to our website. If we had a bulletin board with curated links, not just any old thing put up there, and then we just can't send you a mess. But Monica, you're the web person, right? So if you could send out a like a template, you know how you have like an embedded link, like a sentence that's describing it, click here, and then the link's embedded. So if you're interested in teaching at Tessellations, which is in blah, 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 California, they've got 3 job openings. Here's the link to their website.
Okay. If y'all are fine by that, with no objections, then we can create some form of curated bulletin board. As information comes to us, we can just post it on there.
And we could send information to Monica, CC Dustin. Would that be okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, all right. Prepare.
All right. And then
the onslaught.
Speaking of Agate website requests and ideas, I put you on the agenda, Christine, from your
That's
idea.
pretty much it.
Okay.
Just want to get our information out.
Okay. Well, you said something along the lines of posting ads for things and selling them for like $25.
I did.
Okay. You want
I did. Last week, I received an email from our good friends in Texas who are selling little ad space and on their website, and for $25, a whole menu of prices. You could feature your program or upcoming event. And I just thought, again, I was thinking, well, a bulletin board page or something where it could be posted, but along with that $25, it gets a push out to their thousands of members. And who doesn't have $25? So it's just for people who are running programs, Aegis would be free because that's the way that works. But Aegis would be a program, but there's lots of districts that have programs that, again, it just elevates the presence of gifted services. And because I thought of it, I get a free listing one time.
So would you share any of that information that you were requested by Texas with me and Monica so we can?
Sure. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And would y'all be okay if we did something like that where we solicited sponsored emails?
Well, and it can even be part of the spring newsletter where the summer program section, and charge. I mean, offer if you would like to advertise in our spring newsletter, $25 will give you a half page, $30 a full page, whatever you want to do, but that's reasonable. And then organize it in the spring newsletter, push it out, and they can also get a free link on the bulletin page.
Yeah, I like the idea. Anything we do to grow awareness, information, and make money is a great idea.
And I'll send it to you. Yeah.
I have a quick question about that. So if we're offering an opportunity for someone to purchase an advertisement in our newsletter, could that open a problem if that opportunity, if someone tried to purchase an ad that did not align with gifted education? or the goals of AGATE.
Like a porn site that we keep getting solicited for.
I just don't, I think we might need to really think that through, because if we're just going to offer that out, then we need to have some parameters maybe. I don't know. I don't know how to go about that.
We can have it go before the publicity committee to get approval.
It would have to be approved and tested. It'd have to be a legit program. I would worry if you receive solicitations from people who you didn't know. You could ask for a reference and their website, so you could check those things out.
So Christine, oh, sorry. Didn't you say you saw it on Texas? Could we reach out to them and see if it's already made, so we're not reinventing the wheel? Like, they may already have the guidelines.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it on, I have it on an email, so yeah. And they send it out to their membership, so yeah, we'll check it out.
Yeah.
I will send it so
Thank-
everybody can see.
We'll bring it back before the board before any official things are solidified. Ronnie,
Well, one thing you could do, you know, y'all are talking about getting all these things from all over, and I think Laura may have said, "Oh my gosh, here comes so and so." We might could have just a little disclaimer, some type of disclaimer that says this is all these things that come through are not specifically endorsed by AGATE, but this is information in case you want it. That's passed. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, kind of like a little disclaimer. It's like that. Gee, we know we're getting a lot of stuff. We're not going to take responsibility for some of this stuff coming through here.
no, I think that's a great idea. Thanks, Ronnie K. Okay, I know it's close to 11:30. The last few items were the Governor's Advisory Council. Stephanie, we lost her, and Haley's not here, but I wanted to give them an opportunity to say anything, but since they're not here. And then I wanted to pick dates for our next meeting, because I probably should have asked this or made it a specific agenda item, but we've met 4 times. We met in the summer, we met in the fall, the winter, and the spring. My understanding is we don't meet again in the summer, but maybe we could if we wanted to, because we have that ability. But I would like to entertain the idea of setting at least the next agenda meeting, or sorry, agenda date, because if we don't meet until September, sometimes our dates fill up quickly throughout the year. And so we can set them all now, or we can at a minimum set the very next meeting while we have our calendars. So if you would get out your calendar, and I'm open to meeting in the summer because I don't want to necessarily wait from April to September, but I don't want to meet just to meet. So anybody have thoughts about it? I didn't get to
When
meet.
do you want to propose your budget?
Well, that's the big one. We do have the new budget go into effect July 1. So it would.
So that sounds like a July or August meeting to me.
That's my preference, but I also know that people's time in the summer is sacrosanct. So would y'all be okay doing a July or August meeting? Preferably July, because that way we're not butting up like we did last time, August and September.
Well, and I think if you focus on the budget and setting dates, and not a full on 3 hour, I think that's really reasonable.
All right. Well, then let's open
Are we also going to look at the nominating committee thing then, or is it postponed to another date?
We'll let the nominating committee or the ad hoc committee come up with the proposal, and if they're ready by then, great. If not, we'll wait. But at least let's plan on a date, and let's look in July. And I'm open to do it anytime that y'all are preferable. I know Wednesday mornings is kind of been our MO this year, which doesn't always work in a school year. So, but it's the summer.
Dustin, may I ask one thing? I'm really going to do my big push for my fall event with the legislators, like I did a couple of years ago. And the man from Greenway, we're doing it at his home, and I'm thinking that we can do this. Even I think with COVID, I think we can move on now a little bit better. And truly, I think it won't be such a large group that I think it would be unsafe. But anyway, he has mentioned to me that do we still want to do that? And I said, yes. And that will be my event that I will do as a District 1 area director. I do want to point out that this man just raised $250,000 for the Northeast Arkansas Food Bank in Southeast Missouri and Northeast Arkansas.
Wow.
And I really want to give kudos to him. And if he's willing to do this and pay for it for Agate, I really want to make a concerted effort. And I would like some direction of that this summer in July, because I'm thinking I want to do it in the fall.
Great. I think it's a great idea. So would y'all be open to the idea of doing an on-site in July in collaboration maybe with Governor's School Educator Day? Like we do the morning educator day and then piggyback in the afternoon? Or is that too much in one day?
I won't be available just due to summer program schedule. So, but I mean, if that works for everybody, have at it. Absolutely. But we run programs all summer.
Anybody else?
I can Zoom, but I can't move off campus.
Sorry, yeah, Marcia asked, when is that date? The Governor's School Educator Day would be Saturday, the 24th.
Of July?
Of July.
Works for me.
Because I could partner with Dr. Lacey at ATU and see if we can find spot on campus, and that way you can see Governor School firsthand through Educator Day if you want to participate with that morning, but we meet in the afternoon, like let's say 1:30, 2 o'clock, something like that. And we can have a Zoom option for sure for those that don't want to drive in. Would that work? Works for Marcia. Thank you for using the chat. I see a bunch of yays. All right. Well, then let's tentatively plan it for 2 p.m. on July the 24th. And I'd love to try to do it on site for anybody that can make it. Amanda, will y'all be there already?
I assume so, yes.
Okay. And usually the Governor's School Educator Day is just the morning with the lunch, and then they have the option to continue in the afternoon. So that way, if you want to kill two birds with one stone, you can do PD Educator Day or see it at the tech campus, and then do our AGATE board meeting. And we will make it a hybrid option. So if you cannot make it on site, and what I would love to do at that meeting, because that's late enough in the year, we plan the rest of the calendar year. So have your dates ready. We'll have the line item budgets all ready and finalized. And then if you have any pressing issues for your committees or district issues like Ronnie K just brought up, bring that and let me know to put it on the agenda. But I'm trying to streamline the agenda where if you're not, I just don't want to go through it as a laundry list unless you ask me to be put on it. Like Christina asked for some things. I'm not going to add everybody. Otherwise they will go on forever. And I fully anticipated this one being earlier than 11:30, but we're going to be done right at 11:30. All right, so if that's good, 2 o'clock on the 24th of July.
Hey, Dustin, did any of our other directors have reports? Because they're not on the agenda, are they, to report today?
No, nobody contacted asking for it.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure, because that used to be a line item for every agenda was directors' reports.
And I do have another question. That meeting on the 24th, does that mean we won't be a Zoom at all, that we will meet in Russellville?
It'll be both. You'll have the option to meet in Russellville or do Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
We don't want you to be in Russellville and do Zoom though.
Got that.
Okay. All right. Well, if that's it, unless there's any other new business, because we kind of hit everything I have on the agenda, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, motion by Christine. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jennifer Park. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. Unanimous. All right. And it's with 1 minute to spare. I'm going to stop recording. Thank you all for giving us your morning. I apologize for taking this long, but we will see y'all in July.